The observation deck of Apex Station offered a view that most beings in the galaxy would never see in their lifetime. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction, and 3 massive planets hung in the distance like colorful jewels against black velvet. Jiho Kim stood at the transparent wall, his hands clasped behind his back, watching a transport ship drift past. He had been on this station for 6 months now, and the view still took his breath away every single time. Behind him, the deck was filling with diplomats and traders from a dozen different species. The evening social hour was beginning, a tradition on Apex Station where beings from different worlds gathered to talk and build relationships outside of formal meetings. Jiho could hear the mixture of translated voices, the hum of universal translators turning alien languages into words he could understand. He checked his watch. 5 more minutes, then he would leave. He had learned the timing perfectly over the past few weeks. "Jiho!" a human voice called out. Taiho Park, his colleague from Earth, walked over with a drink in each hand. He offered one to Jiho. "You're leaving early again?" Jiho took the drink but didn't sip it. "I have reports to finish." "You always have reports to finish," Taiho said, leaning against the wall next to him. "You know people are starting to notice. You show up, you stay exactly 15 minutes, then you disappear." "I'm here, aren't I?" Jiho replied. "I fulfill my diplomatic obligations." Taiho laughed. "Barely. Hana asked me yesterday if you were feeling okay. She thinks maybe you're sick or homesick or something." Hana Choi was the station administrator, a sharp woman who noticed everything that happened on Apex. If she was asking questions, that meant others were talking. Jiho felt a small knot of tension in his stomach. "I'm fine," he said. "Just busy." "Uh-huh." Taiho didn't sound convinced. He was about to say something else when his attention shifted to someone approaching them. His expression changed to one of curiosity. "Oh, incoming." Jiho didn't need to turn around to know who it was. He had developed a 6th sense for this exact situation. Lyra was walking toward them. He could see her reflection in the transparent wall. She was tall and graceful, her skin displaying the soft, bioluminescent glow that all Velians had. Tonight it was a gentle blue, which meant she was calm and friendly. Her species communicated as much through their light as they did through words. "Good evening, Taiho, Jiho," she said, her voice musical and warm. The translator rendered her words in perfect standard language, but there was something about the original tone that came through, something that made every word sound like part of a song. "Lyra, good to see you," Taiho said with genuine warmth. "How did the negotiations with the Corvin delegation go?" "Very well," Lyra replied. Her glow brightened slightly, showing pleasure. "They agreed to the cultural exchange program. We'll have Corvin students visiting Velia next season." "That's fantastic," Taiho said. Lyra turned her attention to Jiho. "I wanted to ask you something, Jiho. Next week there's a presentation on human art and culture. The council thought it would be good for interspecies understanding. Would you be willing to speak about Earth's music traditions? I know you mentioned once that you studied music." Jiho felt that familiar tightness in his chest. He kept his expression neutral, his voice professional. "I'm not sure I'm the best person for that. Taiho knows more about music than I do." "I really don't," Taiho said quickly, looking confused. "You literally have a degree in music composition, Jiho. I can barely play the radio." Lyra's glow flickered, a brief dimming that indicated uncertainty. "If you're too busy, I understand. But I thought you would enjoy it. You seemed so passionate when you talked about music before." "I'll check my schedule," Jiho said. It was the same thing he always said, a non-answer that sounded like a maybe, but really meant no. "I should go. Those reports won't finish themselves." He could feel Taiho staring at him in disbelief, but he didn't meet his colleague's eyes. He simply nodded to both of them and walked away, leaving his untouched drink on the nearby table. As he walked through the corridors of Apex Station, Jiho felt the familiar mixture of relief and guilt. Relief because he had escaped another interaction. Guilt because he knew his behavior was hurting someone who didn't deserve it. This had been going on for 3 weeks now, ever since that day. 3 weeks ago, Jiho had been assigned to work with Lyra on a trade negotiation. It was supposed to be a simple meeting, nothing complicated. He had prepared his materials, reviewed the terms, and felt confident going in. Then Lyra had walked into the conference room. Something had happened in that moment, something Jiho hadn't expected and couldn't control. It wasn't logical, it wasn't professional. It was just there, immediate and overwhelming. An attraction so strong it had nearly knocked the breath out of him. He had managed to get through that meeting, barely. His hands had trembled slightly as he reviewed documents. His concentration had been scattered. He kept losing track of what people were saying because part of his attention was always on her, on the way she moved, the sound of her voice, the patterns of light that moved across her skin when she talked. After that meeting, he had made a decision. He would avoid her as much as possible. It wasn't fair to her. Lyra had done nothing wrong. She was kind, intelligent, and good at her job. She deserved a colleague who could work with her professionally, not someone who got distracted every time she entered a room. More than that, Jiho knew how dangerous this could be. He was a diplomat. His job required clear thinking and good judgment. Attraction clouded both of those things. He had seen it happen before, both in history and in his own career. He had watched good people make terrible decisions because they couldn't separate their feelings from their work, so he had started avoiding her. He changed his schedule to minimize contact. He took different routes through the station. When they did have to interact, he kept it brief and formal. He knew she had noticed. He knew it hurt her feelings, but he couldn't see another option. The problem was getting worse, not better. The more he saw her, even briefly, the stronger the feeling became. And now she was actively trying to spend time with him, to build a friendship or professional relationship. She had no idea why he kept pulling away. Jiho reached his quarters and palmed the door open. Inside, everything was neat and organized, just like he kept his thoughts. Or tried to. He sat at his desk and pulled up his reports, but the words blurred on the screen. He kept thinking about the confused flicker in Lyra's bioluminescence when he had brushed her off again. This couldn't continue. He knew that. Eventually, she would stop trying to be friendly. Or worse, she would demand an explanation. And what could he possibly say that wouldn't make everything more complicated? Jiho closed his eyes and rubbed his temples. 6 more months on this station. He just had to maintain distance for 6 more months. Then he would rotate back to Earth, and this would all be over. He tried to believe that would be enough time. He tried to believe that avoiding her was the right choice. But deep down, he knew this situation was heading toward a confrontation he couldn't dodge forever. The negotiation chamber was finally empty. Jiho gathered his data tablets slowly, deliberately taking his time. The meeting with the Androvan trade representatives had lasted 4 hours, and his brain felt tired from all the careful diplomacy and translated conversations. But at least it was done, and done successfully. Both sides had reached an agreement that benefited everyone. He was the last one in the room, or so he thought. "That was well done," a voice said from behind him. Jiho's whole body tensed. He knew that voice immediately. He turned slowly and saw Lyra standing near the doorway. She must have been waiting outside. Her bioluminescence was a neutral green, difficult to read. "Thank you," he said, keeping his voice professional. "The Androvans are reasonable negotiators. It made things easier." "You were reasonable too," Lyra said. She took a few steps into the room. "You found a solution that no one else had thought of. That export timing adjustment was brilliant." Jiho nodded, already moving toward the door. Just part of the job. I should get these notes filed while they're fresh in my mind. Ji-ho, wait. Something in her voice made him stop. It wasn't a request. It was a command, soft but firm. He turned back to her, keeping his expression neutral. Yes? Lyra's glow shifted to a darker blue, almost purple. Sadness, if he remembered the Velian color meanings correctly. Why do you keep avoiding me? The question hung in the air between them. Ji-ho felt his heart rate increase. This was the confrontation he had been dreading. I'm not avoiding you, he said, but even he could hear how weak it sounded. I've just been busy with my assignments. Don't do that, Lyra said quietly. Don't insult my intelligence with obvious lies. You avoid me every single day. You change your route when you see me coming. You decline every invitation I offer. When I try to have normal conversations, you end them as quickly as possible. Her light flickered rapidly now, shifting through colors. Blue to purple to red to orange. Distress. Real, genuine distress. Among Valians, this kind of display was like crying in public. It showed vulnerability that most of them would never reveal. Ji-ho felt guilt twist in his stomach. Lyra, have I offended you somehow? She asked, and her voice broke slightly. Did I do something wrong? Is it my species? I know some humans find Velians strange with our lights and our telepathic sensitivity. I try not to read emotions without permission, but sometimes I can't help it. Is that what bothers you? No, Ji-ho said quickly. It's nothing like that. Then what? Lyra stepped closer. Your people seemed so open when we first made contact. Humans were curious and friendly. But you act like being near me is painful, and I don't understand why. Ji-ho set his tablets down on the conference table. His hands were shaking slightly, and he didn't want her to see that. He took a deep breath, trying to find words that would make sense. It's not you, he said finally. You haven't done anything wrong. Then why? Lyra's glow was pure purple now, deep and sad. Why won't you work with me? Why won't you even be in the same room with me if you can avoid it? Ji-ho looked away, staring at the blank wall screen where trade documents had been displayed earlier. He could feel her watching him, waiting for an answer. Her telepathic sensitivity probably meant she could feel his emotional turmoil even without trying to read his mind. I can feel that you're conflicted, Lyra said softly. I'm not trying to invade your privacy, but your emotions are very strong right now. Whatever this is, it's causing you distress too. So please, just tell me. Let me understand. Ji-ho closed his eyes. He had known this moment would come eventually. He had just hoped it would be later, or never. It's complicated, he said. I'm intelligent enough to understand complicated things, Lyra replied. There was a hint of frustration in her voice now, along with the hurt. It's very human, Ji-ho said. I don't know if you'll understand. Try me. Ji-ho turned to face her. Her bioluminescence was shifting again, now showing orange mixed with green. Confusion and hope blended together. Among humans, he began slowly, we experience something that I don't think most other species feel the same way, or at least, not with the same intensity. Lyra tilted her head, listening. We call it attraction, Ji-ho continued. Physical and romantic attraction. It's different from friendship or respect or professional admiration. It's something more immediate and less controllable. We have partnerships among Velians, Lyra said. We bond with others. Is it like that? Not exactly, Ji-ho said. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated at his inability to explain clearly. Your bonding is mental and emotional, right? It develops over time as you get to know someone? Yes, Lyra said. It takes months or even years to develop a true bond. We share thoughts and feelings gradually, building compatibility. Human attraction doesn't work that way, Ji-ho said. It can happen instantly, the moment you meet someone, before you know anything about them. It's based on appearance, voice, body language, chemical signals we call pheromones. It's not logical. It's not based on compatibility or shared values or whether the person would be a good partner. It's just there. Immediate and powerful. Lyra's glow shifted to pale yellow. Surprise. You feel this for people you've just met? Sometimes, Ji-ho said. Not always, but yes, sometimes. And it's strong? Ji-ho nodded. It can be overwhelming. It affects your thinking, your concentration, your judgment. Throughout human history, this kind of attraction has caused countless problems. Wars have been fought over it. Partnerships have been destroyed. People have made terrible decisions because they couldn't think clearly through the fog of attraction. Lyra was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Her light had settled into a steady yellow, the color of intense thought. "And you feel this?" she said slowly. "For me?" Ji-ho met her eyes. There was no point in lying now. "Yes, from the moment we first met. That trade negotiation 3 weeks ago, it hit me like a physical force." "I remember that meeting," Lyra said. "You seemed distracted. I thought you were tired or unwell." "I was trying to focus on the work," Ji-ho said, "but it was difficult. Every time you spoke, every time you moved, part of my attention went to you instead of to the negotiation. That's when I realized I had a problem." "A problem," Lyra repeated. Her glow flickered uncertainly. "Yes," Ji-ho said firmly. "Because I'm a diplomat. My job requires clear thinking and good judgment. I can't afford to have my judgment clouded by attraction. I can't afford to make decisions based on feelings instead of logic." "So you decided to avoid me," Lyra said. "Yes," Ji-ho admitted. "I thought if I kept my distance, the attraction would fade, or at least I could manage it better. I thought it was the professional thing to do." Lyra's bioluminescence dimmed almost to nothing. In the conference room's normal lighting, she looked almost gray. Ji-ho didn't know what that meant. He had never seen a Valian's light go so low. "I see," she said quietly. The silence stretched between them. Ji-ho wanted to explain more, to make her understand that this wasn't her fault, that he was protecting both of them. But he didn't know what else to say. Finally, Lyra spoke again. "You've been avoiding me to protect me from your own feelings." "And to protect myself," Ji-ho said honestly. "And to protect my professional integrity." Lyra's light stayed dim, barely visible. She stood completely still like a statue. Seconds passed, then a minute, then 2 minutes. "Lyra," Ji-ho said, starting to worry. "Are you okay?" She didn't respond. Her eyes were open, but she seemed to be looking through him rather than at him. Her bioluminescence stayed at that dim, almost gray level. Ji-ho took a step closer. "Lyra, please say something." But she remained silent, completely motionless, processing something that he couldn't understand. 3 minutes had passed. Ji-ho checked his watch again, feeling increasingly anxious. Lyra still hadn't moved or spoken. Her bioluminescence remained at that strange, dim level he had never seen before. It was like watching someone's light slowly go out. "Lyra," he said again, more urgently this time, "please, talk to me. Did I say something wrong?" Finally, she blinked. Her light brightened slightly, returning to a dull gray blue. "No," she said softly. "You didn't say anything wrong. I'm just trying to understand." She moved to one of the chairs around the conference table and sat down slowly. Her movements were careful, deliberate, like she was learning to control her body all over again. Ji-ho remained standing, unsure what to do. He had expected anger, maybe, or disgust, or even fear. But this silence, this complete withdrawal into thought, was something he hadn't prepared for. "Among Valians," Lyra said finally, still staring at the table, "we don't have this thing you describe. this immediate attraction. Our bonds form slowly, based on mental compatibility. We share thoughts over time, building understanding. The physical aspect comes much later, after months or years of mental connection. I know, Jiho said. I've read about Velian bonding practices. But you're telling me, Lyra continued, her voice thoughtful, that humans can feel intense desire for someone they don't even know before any mental connection exists, before any real understanding develops. Yes, Jiho confirmed. It's biological, chemical. It happens in our brains without our conscious control. We can choose what we do about it, but we can't choose whether we feel it. Lyra's glow shifted to yellow again, that color of deep thought. And this happens to all humans? Most humans, Jiho said. There are exceptions. Some humans don't experience attraction at all, or experience it differently. But for the majority of us, yes, this is normal. How do you function? Lyra asked, looking up at him suddenly. If you can feel such strong things for strangers, without logic or reason, how do you make rational decisions? How do you maintain professional relationships? Jiho pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. Now that the truth was out, he felt oddly relieved. At least he didn't have to hide anymore. We've developed systems, he explained. Social rules, cultural practices, professional boundaries. We learn from childhood how to recognize attraction and how to manage it appropriately. Manage it how? We acknowledge it exists, but we don't act on it impulsively, Jiho said. We understand that attraction alone isn't a good basis for a partnership. We need compatibility, shared values, mutual respect. So we take time to evaluate whether someone is actually good for us or if we're just feeling physical attraction. Lyra's bioluminescence flickered. That must be exhausting, to feel something so strongly but know you can't trust it. Sometimes it is, Jiho admitted, especially when you're young and still learning. But most humans get better at it as they age. We learn to distinguish between attraction and actual connection. And you felt this for me, Lyra said. It wasn't a question, just a statement of fact. Yes, Jiho said, strong enough that it interfered with my ability to work with you. Strong enough that I couldn't trust my own judgment when you were around. Lyra was quiet for a moment, her light shifting through several colors. Yellow to green to blue, thinking through possibilities. What would happen if you acted on this attraction? Jiho felt heat rise in his face. In human terms, I would probably try to pursue a romantic relationship with you. I would ask you to spend time with me outside of work. I would try to become closer to you, physically and emotionally. But you don't want to do that. It's not about what I want, Jiho said carefully. It's about what's appropriate. You're not human. You don't experience attraction the same way. If I pursued you, I would be imposing my feelings on you without your understanding or consent. That would be wrong. Lyra's glow brightened slightly, shifting toward orange. And that's why you avoided me. You were trying to be ethical. I was trying not to make you uncomfortable, Jiho said, and trying to maintain professional boundaries, and trying to protect myself from making stupid decisions based on feelings instead of logic. But by avoiding me, you hurt me in a different way, Lyra said quietly. I thought I had done something wrong. I thought you disliked me or found my species repulsive. Guilt twisted in Jiho's stomach again. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. If I had worked closely with you, I would have struggled to stay professional. But by avoiding you, I caused exactly the kind of diplomatic problem I was trying to prevent. Lyra tilted her head, studying him with those large, dark eyes. This is very complicated. Welcome to being human, Jiho said with a weak smile. Do other species experience this? Lyra asked. I don't know, Jiho said honestly. We've only been part of the galactic community for 30 years. We're still learning about others, and they're still learning about us. But from what I've read, most species seem to have more logical, controlled approaches to partnership formation. The Corvins choose partners based on genetic compatibility tests, Lyra said. The Androvans have arranged partnerships decided by family groups. The Talaxians bond for life with the first partner they choose at age 20. Exactly, Jiho said. They all have systems based on logic and social structure. Humans have those too, but we also have this other layer. This immediate, powerful attraction that can override our logical thinking if we let it. Lyra's bioluminescence shifted to a soft purple. That sounds frightening. It can be, Jiho admitted. Attraction has caused a lot of problems throughout human history. Betrayals, broken families, poor decisions. But it's also led to great things. Love stories, passionate partnerships, incredible art and music created out of that intensity of feeling. So it's both good and bad, Lyra said. Like most human traits, Jiho replied. We're complicated creatures. We feel things strongly, but we also have the capacity to choose our actions despite those feelings. That's what I was trying to do. Feel what I felt, but choose to act professionally anyway. Lyra was quiet again, but this time her silence felt different. Less shocked, more contemplative. Her glow had settled into a steady blue-green, calm and thoughtful. I'm trying to imagine it, she said finally. Trying to understand what it must be like. To have such powerful feelings appear without warning or reason, to have to constantly evaluate whether what you feel is real connection or just biology. It's confusing sometimes, Jiho said. Especially in situations like this, where I'm working with someone from another species. I don't have any cultural framework for this. Human dating and relationship customs don't apply. I don't know if you could even return feelings like this, or if the whole concept is alien to you. It is alien, Lyra said, but not repulsive, just different. Very different. She stood up slowly, her light brightening back to a more normal level. The deep purple of sadness was fading, replaced by that yellow of thoughtfulness. Thank you for telling me the truth, she said. I understand now why you were avoiding me. I don't agree with your method, but I understand your reasoning. I'm sorry I hurt you, Jiho said, standing as well. That was never my intention. I know that now, Lyra said. Her glow shifted to a warm orange. You were trying to protect me, in a very human way with very human reasoning. It's just not how we Velians would approach such a problem. How would a Velian approach it? Jiho asked, genuinely curious. Lyra's light flickered with what might have been amusement. We would probably discuss it immediately. We value emotional honesty above almost everything else. The idea of hiding feelings to protect someone would seem strange to us. We believe that sharing emotions, even difficult ones, leads to better understanding. That's very different from humans, Jiho said. We often hide our feelings to avoid making others uncomfortable. I'm beginning to understand that, Lyra said. Your species has so many layers. You feel intensely, but you hide those feelings. You have attraction, but you don't always act on it. You can want something but choose not to pursue it. Does that make sense to you? Jiho asked. Lyra's glow shifted through several colors before settling on a soft blue. I'm starting to see the logic in it. It's not how Velians think, but I can understand why humans develop this way. Does this change things between us? Jiho asked quietly. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her bioluminescence steady and calm. Yes, she said, but perhaps not in the way you expect. The next morning, Jiho woke up feeling strange. Not bad, exactly, but different. For the first time in 3 weeks, he didn't immediately start planning how to avoid Lyra. The weight of the secret he had been carrying was gone. and that absence felt both relieving and terrifying at the same time. He went through his morning routine, showered and dressed in his standard diplomatic uniform. As he drank his coffee, he reviewed his schedule. There was a morning briefing, then a trade analysis session, then lunch with several delegates. Lyra would probably be at the briefing. She usually was. His stomach tightened at the thought, but it was different now. Before, it had been dread mixed with anticipation. Now it was just nervousness. What would she say? How would she act? Would things be awkward between them? The briefing was held in one of the smaller conference rooms. When Jiho arrived, about a dozen beings were already there, representing 6 different species. Hana Choi stood at the front preparing her presentation on upcoming trade negotiations. Lyra was sitting near the middle of the room. Her bioluminescence was a calm green, neutral, and professional. When Jiho entered, she looked up and met his eyes. Her glow didn't change. She simply nodded once, an acknowledgement. Jiho took a seat on the opposite side of the room, giving her space. Old habits. The briefing proceeded normally. Hana discussed upcoming meetings, trade routes, and political situations that might affect station operations. Jiho took notes on his tablet, actually paying attention, instead of spending half his energy trying not to look at Lyra. It was easier now, somehow. The attraction was still there, he could feel it, but it wasn't overwhelming anymore. Maybe because the secret was out. Maybe because he had finally been honest about it. After the briefing ended, people began filing out. Jiho gathered his things, preparing to leave quickly as usual. But then Lyra appeared next to him. "Do you have time to talk?" she asked. Her glow was still that calm green. "Yes," Jiho said, surprised. "Of course." They found an empty observation lounge, one of the smaller ones that few people used. The view showed Apex Station's curved exterior and the planet below, slowly rotating. Lyra sat down in one of the chairs designed for humanoid species. Jiho sat across from her, maintaining a respectful distance. "I thought about our conversation all night," Lyra said. "I spoke with Nira, my friend from home. I wanted another Velian perspective on what you told me." "What did she say?" Jiho asked. "She was as surprised as I was," Lyra said. "The concept is very foreign to us, but she helped me think through the implications. She helped me understand why this matters so much." Jiho waited, letting her continue at her own pace. "I did some research too," Lyra went on. "I accessed the Galactic database, reading about human psychology and behavior. I learned about your history, your culture, your relationship practices. I wanted to understand this attraction you described." "And?" Jiho asked. Lyra's glow shifted to yellow, thoughtful. "Humans are remarkable. You experience these intense, involuntary feelings, but you've developed such complex systems to manage them. Consent culture, dating rituals, professional boundaries. You've built an entire social structure around managing something you can't control." "We've had to," Jiho said. "Otherwise, attraction would cause chaos. In the past, before we developed these systems, it often did cause chaos." "I read about that," Lyra said. "Wars fought over romantic partners, political marriages that ended badly, workplace relationships that destroyed careers. But I also read about love, about partnerships built on both attraction and compatibility, about humans who learned to balance their feelings with their judgment." "It's a constant balance," Jiho admitted. "We're always managing it, throughout our whole lives." Lyra leaned forward slightly. "What you did, avoiding me, it makes more sense now. You were trying to maintain that balance. You were trying to protect your professional judgment and protect me from something I couldn't understand." "Yes," Jiho said, "though I realize now it wasn't the best approach." "Maybe not," Lyra agreed. "But it came from good intentions. You were trying to be ethical. That's what impressed me most when I was researching human behavior last night." What do you mean? Lyra's glow brightened, shifting to a warm orange. Most species in the galaxy experience emotions they can control or at least predict. The Velians bond slowly and deliberately. The Corvins follow genetic compatibility. The Androvans have family-arranged partnerships. But humans experience something wild and uncontrollable. And yet you still choose to act ethically. Jiho hadn't thought about it that way before. You could act on impulse, Lyra continued. You could let attraction guide your decisions. Many beings would if they felt something so powerful. But humans have developed the ability to feel something intensely and still choose differently. That's remarkable. I suppose it is, Jiho said slowly. Though it doesn't always feel remarkable. Usually it just feels difficult. Difficult things often are remarkable, Lyra said. She paused, her light flickering as she considered her next words. I want to work with you, Jiho. I value your skills as a negotiator. I think we could do good work together. I'd like that too, Jiho said carefully. But I need you to understand something. The attraction I feel, it doesn't just disappear because we talked about it. It's still there. I understand that now, Lyra said. But you managed it for 3 weeks by avoiding me. Can you manage it while working with me? Jiho thought about it honestly. I think so. Now that you know, it's easier. Before, I was trying to hide something while also fighting against it. That took enormous energy. Now I don't have to hide. I can just acknowledge it and work around it. Work around it how? I'll maintain professional boundaries, Jiho explained. I won't try to pursue anything romantic. I won't let the attraction affect my judgment in negotiations. If I feel like it's becoming a problem, I'll tell you honestly. Lyra's glow shifted to blue, calm and trusting. That seems reasonable. And I promise to tell you if I ever feel uncomfortable or if I notice your behavior changing in ways that concern me. Fair enough, Jiho said. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the planet rotate below them. The silence felt different now, not tense or awkward, but peaceful. Can I ask you something? Lyra said finally. Of course. This attraction you feel, does it change how you see me as a person? Does it affect your respect for me as a colleague? Jiho considered the question carefully. No, he said. If anything, it made me more aware of your value. I had to work harder to see past the attraction to who you really are. And what I saw was someone intelligent, diplomatic, and genuinely kind. Someone worth knowing beyond any feelings of attraction. Lyra's bioluminescence brightened, a warm mix of orange and yellow, pleasure and appreciation. Thank you for saying that. It's true, Jiho said simply. I want you to know something too, Lyra said. I don't experience attraction the way you do. I can't return those feelings. But I respect you, Jiho. I respect your intelligence, your ethics, and your honesty. I value you as a colleague, and I hope we can become friends. I'd like that, Jiho said, and meant it. Good. Lyra stood up, her movements graceful. We have that trade analysis session in 20 minutes. Shall we walk together? Jiho stood as well. Yes, let's. As they left the observation lounge, walking side by side through the station corridors, Jiho felt something shift inside him. The attraction was still there, a low hum in the background of his awareness. But it wasn't controlling him anymore. He had acknowledged it, explained it, and now he could simply let it exist without letting it rule his actions. It felt like freedom. Lyra's bioluminescence glowed a steady blue-green as they walked, calm and content. She seemed more relaxed, too, no longer confused or hurt by his behavior. Maybe this could work after all. Maybe honesty had been the right choice, even though it had been terrifying to make. Taiho was waiting outside the analysis session room. When he saw Jiho and Lyra walking together, actually talking and seemingly comfortable, his eyes widened in surprise. "Well," he said, "this is new." Jiho smiled slightly. "Things change." "Good changes?" Taiho asked. Lyra's glow brightened. "Very good changes." As they entered the conference room together, Jiho felt genuinely optimistic for the first time in weeks. He didn't know exactly how this would work long-term, but at least now they had a foundation of honesty to build on. And maybe that was enough. 2 weeks passed, and the change was remarkable. Jiho and Lyra worked together on 3 different projects, and each time their collaboration improved. The first meeting had been slightly awkward, both of them carefully professional. The second was easier. By the third, they had found a rhythm that worked. Jiho learned to recognize when his attraction was interfering with his focus. When it happened, he would take a short break, step outside the room for water or fresh air, then return with his mind clear. Lyra never questioned these breaks. She simply waited, and they continued their work when he returned. For her part, Lyra was learning to recognize human emotional signals. She asked questions when she was confused about Jiho's behavior, and he answered honestly. The communication between them improved drastically. Other people on the station noticed the change, too. Taiho mentioned it several times, pleased that Jiho seemed happier and less tense. Hana stopped asking if he was feeling well. Even the delegates from other species commented that the human-Velian working relationship seemed strong. The real test came when they were assigned to negotiate a complex trade agreement between Earth and a species called the Moran. The Moran were difficult negotiators, known for their aggressive tactics and their ability to find weaknesses in opponents. The negotiation was expected to last several days. Jiho and Lyra prepared together in one of the station's preparation rooms. Documents and data covered the screens around them. They had been working for 3 hours, reviewing terms and discussing strategy. "The Moran will try to separate us," Lyra said, studying a report. "They prefer to negotiate with individuals rather than teams. They think single negotiators are easier to manipulate." "Then we don't let them separate us," Jiho said. "We present a united front. You handle the cultural aspects, I handle the economic terms. We support each other." Agreed. Lyra's glow was a focused yellow, the color she showed when deeply concentrated. "What about their tactic of personal attacks?" "The reports say they often try to make negotiators angry or defensive." "We stay calm," Jiho said. "Don't take anything personally. Remember that it's just strategy on their part." They continued planning until late into the station's night cycle. When they finally stopped, both were exhausted but felt prepared. "You should rest," Lyra said. "Humans need more sleep than Velians. The negotiation starts early tomorrow." "You need rest too," Jiho pointed out. "I'll meditate for a few hours," Lyra said. "That's sufficient for me." As Jiho gathered his materials to leave, Lyra spoke again. "Jiho, thank you for trusting me with this negotiation. I know it's an important one for Earth." "Thank you for working with me," Jiho replied. "I couldn't do this alone." The next morning, the negotiation chamber was set up formally. The Moran delegation consisted of 4 members, all tall and heavily built, with thick skin that looked almost like armor. Their leader was named Crag, and his reputation for aggressive negotiation was well known throughout the galaxy. Jiho and Lyra sat side by side at their delegation table. Across from them, the Moran delegation settled into their seats with expressions that Jiho could only describe as predatory. "Let us begin," Crag said, his voice rough and deep. "I understand that Earth wishes to purchase Moran metals for your industrial production." "That's correct," Jiho said calmly. "And we're prepared to offer agricultural products and medical technology in exchange." "Your agricultural products are weak," Crag said dismissively. "We can get better quality from the Androvan systems." This was the first test. trying to make Jiho defensive about Earth's products. He didn't take the bait. The Androvan systems produce different crop varieties, Jiho said evenly. Our analysis shows that Earth's grain structure is better suited to Moran digestive systems. We can provide you with the nutritional comparison data if you'd like to review it. Craig's expression shifted slightly, surprised that Jiho hadn't reacted to the insult. And your medical technology? What makes you think we need it? Your exploration vessels operate in high radiation zones, Lyra interjected smoothly. Our research indicates that Moran physiology is resistant to radiation but not immune. Earth's radiation treatment technology could improve your crew safety by 40%. Craig turned his attention to Lyra. And what does a Velian know about Moran physiology? I studied xenobiology at the Velian Science Institute, Lyra replied calmly. Her bioluminescence was steady blue, professional, and unruffled. I've reviewed the available research on 23 different species, including yours. The negotiation continued for hours. Craig and his team tried every tactic they were known for. They made personal comments about human weakness. They questioned Lyra's expertise. They tried to discuss economic terms with Lyra and cultural issues with Jiho, attempting to separate their areas of knowledge. But Jiho and Lyra worked as one unit. When Craig tried to negotiate economics with Lyra, she deferred to Jiho smoothly. When they tried to discuss cultural matters with Jiho, he brought Lyra into the conversation immediately. They supported each other's statements, backed up each other's data, and never contradicted each other. By the end of the first day, the Moran delegation looked frustrated. They called for a recess and left the chamber in tense silence. That went well, Lyra said once they were alone. You were excellent, Jiho said. The way you handled that question about radiation treatment was perfect. You stayed calm through all their insults, Lyra replied. I was impressed. They were clearly trying to anger you. I've dealt with worse, Jiho said. Human politics can be brutal. The Moran are aggressive, but at least they're honest about it. They prepared for day 2, reviewing their strategy and adjusting based on what they had learned about the Moran delegation's tactics. The second day was harder. Craig changed his approach, becoming more reasonable, but also more detailed in his demands. He wanted specific guarantees, exact quantities, detailed timelines. The negotiation became a marathon of careful terms and precise language. Jiho felt his concentration beginning to slip. The attraction to Lyra was still there, always present in the background, and the stress of the negotiation made it harder to manage. He found his attention drifting to her voice, to the patterns of her bioluminescence, instead of to Craig's words. He caught himself and called for a short break. We need 10 minutes to review the latest terms, he said. Craig looked annoyed but agreed. Outside the chamber, Jiho leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. I'm sorry, he said to Lyra. I need a moment to refocus. Take the time you need, Lyra said. There was no judgment in her voice, only understanding. Jiho took several deep breaths, forcing his mind back to the negotiation. The trade terms, the quantities, the timelines. Not Lyra's voice, not the way her light shifted when she made a strong argument. Just the work. After 10 minutes, they returned to the chamber. Jiho's focus was restored. They continued negotiating hour after hour until finally they reached terms that satisfied both sides. When the agreement was finalized, Craig actually smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. You negotiate well, he said to Jiho. Then he turned to Lyra. And you have knowledge that matches your confidence. The Moran respect this. As they left the chamber, Jiho felt exhausted but satisfied. They had achieved better terms than he had hoped for. We make a good team, Lyra said as they walked back through the station corridors. We do, Jiho agreed. Thank you for being patient with me today. I know I needed that break. You're managing something difficult, Lyra said. The fact that you can recognize when you need a moment and take it, that shows strength, not weakness. They reached a junction where their quarters were in different directions. They stopped, facing each other. Get some rest, Lyra said. Her glow was warm orange, friendly, and caring. You've earned it. You too, Jiho said. We have that presentation tomorrow about the negotiation results. I remember, Lyra said. Good night, Jiho. Good night, Lyra. As Jiho walked to his quarters, he realized something. The attraction was still there, probably always would be to some degree. But it didn't control him anymore. He had learned to work with it, around it, through it. He had learned to be honest about it without letting it dictate his actions. And more than that, he had found something valuable. A working relationship built on honesty and mutual respect. A friendship with someone who understood his struggles and accepted them without judgment. Maybe that was better than any romance could have been anyway. That night, Jiho slept better than he had in months. The weight he had been carrying was gone. The constant stress of hiding, avoiding, and fighting against himself had disappeared. In its place was something simpler. Honest work with a trusted colleague, the beginning of a real friendship, and the knowledge that he could manage his own emotions without letting them damage the things that mattered. Tomorrow they would present their successful negotiation to the station council. They would continue working together on other projects, and Jiho would continue managing his attraction while building something more meaningful, a partnership based on respect and trust. It wasn't what he had feared, and it wasn't what he had initially wanted. It was something better, something real. News traveled fast on Apex Station. Within a week of the successful Moran negotiation, other diplomats and trade representatives were asking questions. How had a human and a Valian worked so effectively together? What was their secret to maintaining such strong professional coordination? Taiho cornered Jiho in the cafeteria one afternoon. People are talking about you and Lyra, he said, sitting down with his lunch tray. The successful negotiation, the way you worked together. Some of the other human delegates want to know how you did it. Jiho took a bite of his food, considering his response. We communicate honestly. That's all. That's not all, Taiho said. I've seen you work with other people. You're good, but with Lyra, it's different. There's something else happening there. Jiho looked at his colleague and friend. They had known each other for 3 years, worked together on dozens of projects. Taiho deserved honesty. I told her the truth about something difficult, Jiho said quietly. About human psychology and attraction, about why I had been avoiding her. Once that was out in the open, everything became easier. Taiho's eyes widened. You told her you were attracted to her? Yes, Jiho said, and I explained what that means for humans, how it works, why it was affecting my ability to work with her. She didn't understand at first, but she listened, and now we have a foundation of honesty that makes everything else work. That's incredibly brave, Taiho said. I don't know if I could have done that. It was either that or continue avoiding her, which wasn't working anyway, Jiho replied. Sometimes the brave choice is also the only practical choice. The conversation gave Jiho an idea. That evening, he approached Hana Choi in her office. The station administrator looked up from her desk screens with a welcoming smile. Jiho, what can I do for you? I want to propose a workshop, Jiho said, about human emotional psychology and how it affects diplomatic work. I think it might help other species understand us better and help humans manage cross-species professional relationships. Hana leaned back in her chair, interested. What brought this on? My experience with Lyra, Jiho explained. We had a misunderstanding that came from fundamental differences in how our species experience emotions. Once we addressed it directly, our working relationship improved dramatically. I think other people could benefit from that kind of understanding. Who would lead this workshop? Hana asked. I could, Jiho said. With Lyra's help, to provide the non-human perspective. We could discuss attraction, emotional management, professional boundaries, all the things that humans deal with but other species might not understand. Hana considered this for a moment. That's a sensitive topic. Some species might find it uncomfortable. Which is exactly why we need to discuss it, Jiho said. Discomfort comes from misunderstanding. If we can explain these things clearly in a professional setting, it might prevent future misunderstandings. Let me think about it, Hana said. Give me a few days to consider the implications. 3 days later, Hana approved the workshop. It was scheduled for the following week. Optional attendance, open to all species on the station. Jiho and Lyra prepared together, creating presentation materials and discussion topics. They decided to structure it as an open conversation rather than a formal lecture, encouraging questions and discussion. The day of the workshop arrived. Jiho was nervous. About 20 beings had signed up to attend, representing 8 different species. That was more than he had expected. The workshop was held in one of the smaller conference rooms. Beings filed in and took seats. Jiho recognized several faces. Taiho was there, along with 2 other human delegates. Several Velians attended, including Nira, Lyra's friend. There were Androdan representatives, a Corvan diplomat, and even one Moran, though not from Crag's delegation. Lyra stood at the front of the room with Jiho. Her bioluminescence was steady blue, calm and professional. Thank you all for coming, Jiho began. This workshop is about understanding human emotional psychology, particularly as it relates to professional relationships. Lyra and I want to share what we've learned about cross-species collaboration. Many species in the galaxy have logical, controllable approaches to partnership and bonding, Lyra continued. Humans are different in some significant ways. We're going to discuss those differences today, not to judge them, but to understand them. Jiho took a breath and began explaining. He talked about attraction, how it worked for humans, how it could be immediate and powerful. He explained the difference between attraction and love, between physical desire and emotional connection. Some of the non-human attendees looked confused. Others seemed fascinated. The Corvan diplomat raised a hand. Are you saying humans can feel intense desire for someone they've just met? The Corvan asked. Yes, Jiho confirmed. It's based on physical appearance, voice, body language, and chemical signals. It happens without conscious control. How do you function? The Corvan asked, genuinely puzzled. If you feel such things randomly, how do you make logical decisions? We've developed systems, Jiho explained. Cultural rules, social expectations, professional boundaries. We learn to recognize attraction and manage it appropriately. But you can't stop feeling it? Another voice asked. One of the Androdan representatives. No, Jiho said. We can only choose how we respond to it. Lyra spoke up. This was difficult for me to understand at first. Velians bond slowly, over months or years. The idea that humans could feel such intensity immediately seemed chaotic. But I've learned that humans have remarkable self-control. They feel these powerful things, but still choose ethical behavior. Can you give an example? Nira asked. Jiho and Lyra exchanged glances. They had discussed this beforehand, whether to share their personal experience. Yes, Jiho said. I can give a personal example. When I first met Lyra, I felt immediate attraction to her. It was strong enough that it interfered with my ability to work with her professionally. So, I made a choice to avoid her, thinking that would solve the problem. Some of the attendees shifted in their seats, paying closer attention now. But avoiding her caused different problems, Jiho continued. She thought she had offended me or that I disliked her species. Eventually, she confronted me, and I had to explain the truth. That was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. Why was it hard? The Moran delegate asked. Because I had to admit to feelings that might make her uncomfortable, Jiho explained. Because I had to reveal something that made me vulnerable. Because I didn't know if she would understand or if she would judge me for it. But I did understand eventually, Lyra said. Her glow brightened with warm orange. And once we had that honest conversation, everything became easier. We established boundaries that worked for both of us. We built trust based on honesty. And now we work very effectively together, Jiho added, because we don't have to hide anything or pretend. We both understand the situation and manage it accordingly. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Tejo spoke up. I think a lot of humans struggle with this in cross-species relationships. We're never sure if we should mention it or just try to manage it quietly. I would prefer honesty, Nira said. If a human colleague was having such feelings, I would want to know. Not because I could return them, but because I could adjust my behavior to help them manage the situation. That's very kind, Jiho said. But not all species might feel that way. That's why this education is important. We need to understand each other's perspectives. The discussion continued for 2 hours. Beings asked questions, shared their own experiences, and explored the differences between species. The Corvan diplomat talked about how their genetic compatibility tests removed the emotional chaos from partnership selection. The Androdan representatives discussed their family arrangement systems. The Moran delegate admitted that his species did experience something similar to attraction, but it was less frequent and less intense than what Jiho described for humans. By the end of the workshop, Jiho felt exhausted but satisfied. The conversation had been productive. Understanding had grown. As beings filed out, several approached Jiho and Lyra personally to thank them. The Corvan diplomat shook Jiho's hand. This was enlightening, he said. I will share this information with my delegation. It will help us work with humans more effectively. After everyone had left, Jiho and Lyra remained in the empty conference room. That went well, Lyra said. Better than I expected, Jiho agreed. People were genuinely interested in understanding. You were brave to share your personal experience, Lyra said. That made it real for them. Not just abstract concepts, but actual situations that affect real beings. We were brave, Jiho corrected. You shared just as much as I did. Lyra's bioluminescence shifted to a warm mix of orange and yellow, pleased and appreciative. Thank you for including me in this. I learned a lot too. Not just about humans, but about the value of honest communication across species lines. Over the following weeks, the impact of the workshop became apparent. More cross-species working pairs formed on the station. Humans seemed more comfortable asking for accommodations when they needed them. Non-human species seemed more understanding of human emotional needs. Hana requested that Jiho and Lyra present a similar workshop for new arrivals to the station. They agreed and began developing a more comprehensive version. The galactic diplomatic community started taking notice. Representatives from other stations reached out, asking for information about the workshop content. Some requested that Jiho and Lyra visit their stations to present similar programs. We've started something, Lyra said one evening as they reviewed requests from 3 different stations. We have, Jiho agreed. It's bigger than I expected. Is that good or bad? Jiho considered the question. Good, I think. If our honesty can help other beings work together better, then sharing it was worth it. Even though it was personal and difficult? Lyra asked. Especially because it was personal and difficult, Jiho said. The easy things don't usually teach us much. It's the hard truths that create real understanding. Lyra's glow brightened, a clear sign of approval and respect. Very wise, very human. Jiho smiled. I'll take that as a compliment. 4 months had passed since the conversation that changed everything. Jiho stood in the same observation deck where this had all begun. watching ships come and go from the station. So much had changed, yet in many ways everything was exactly as it should be. The attraction to Lyra was still there. He had accepted that it probably always would be, at least to some degree. But it had faded from overwhelming intensity to a quiet background awareness. More importantly, it no longer controlled his decisions or interfered with his work. "There you are," a familiar voice said. Jiho turned to see Lyra approaching. Her bioluminescence was bright and cheerful, a warm yellow-orange that indicated good news. "We got the confirmation," she said, unable to hide her excitement. "The Galactic Diplomatic Council wants us to present at their annual conference. They want to include human emotional psychology in their standard cross-species training program." Jiho felt a surge of pride and satisfaction. "That's incredible." "It's because of what we started here," Lyra said. "Our honesty, our willingness to share something difficult and personal. It's changing how the galaxy understands humans." They stood side by side at the observation window, watching the stars. Jiho thought back to that day 4 months ago when he had been standing in almost this exact spot, dreading Lyra's approach, planning his escape route. "Do you remember when you asked me why I was avoiding you?" Jiho said quietly. "Of course," Lyra replied. "I remember every part of that conversation, the confusion I felt, the hurt, and then the understanding that came after." "I was terrified when you asked," Jiho admitted. "I thought telling you the truth would end our professional relationship. I thought you would be disgusted or uncomfortable or angry." "I was silent," Lyra said. "I remember that. Completely silent for several minutes." "That was the longest silence of my life," Jiho said with a slight smile. Lyra's glow flickered with amusement. "I was processing something completely foreign to my understanding. The idea that you could feel such intensity without any logical basis, without mental bonding or compatibility assessment. It was like discovering humans breathed different air than I thought." "And now?" Jiho asked. "Now I understand," Lyra said. "Not just intellectually, but truly. I understand that humans experience emotions with an intensity that most species don't. But more importantly, I understand that you have the strength to manage those emotions while maintaining ethical behavior. That's what impressed me most." "It doesn't always feel like strength," Jiho said. "Sometimes it just feels like constant effort." "All strength requires effort," Lyra replied. "That's what makes it strength instead of just ease." The observation deck door opened, and Taiho entered with 2 other human diplomats, Minseo and Yuna. They had been the ones most affected by the workshop, both admitting they had struggled with similar situations in their cross-species work. "We heard the news," Taiho said, grinning. "Congratulations on the Galactic Council presentation." "Thank you," Jiho said. "Though it's not just my achievement. Lyra did as much work as I did." "More, probably," Lyra said. "I had to translate human concepts into terms that other species could understand. That was challenging." Minseo, a young diplomat who had been on the station for only 6 months, spoke up nervously. "Can I ask you something? About managing attraction in professional settings?" "Of course," Jiho said. "There's a Corvan delegate I've been working with," Minseo explained. "And I've been feeling, well, what you described in the workshop, attraction. But I don't know how to handle it. The Corvans are so different from us, and I don't want to make things awkward." "Have you tried talking to them about it?" Lyra asked. Minseo looked shocked. "No, I couldn't." "What if they don't understand?" "They probably won't understand at first," Jiho said. "But that's okay. Explain it the way I explained it to Lyra. Human attraction, how it works, why you're mentioning it. Most beings appreciate honesty, even about difficult topics." "What if they reject me?" Minseo asked. "They probably will," Jiho said gently. "Most non-human species don't experience or return romantic attraction the way humans do. But that's not the point. The point is establishing honest communication so you can work together effectively. And if you don't tell them, Lyra added, you'll end up avoiding them like Jiho avoided me. That will damage your working relationship anyway. Honesty is uncomfortable in the moment, but better in the long term. Minseo nodded slowly. I'll think about it. Thank you. Yuna, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. I've already talked to my Velian colleague about similar feelings. It was awkward at first, but afterward everything was so much easier. We have clear boundaries now, and I don't have to pretend or hide. That's exactly the goal, Jiho said. Not to pursue relationships that aren't possible, but to create honest working environments where everyone understands each other. The five of them talked for another hour, discussing various situations and sharing experiences. Jiho realized that what had started as his personal struggle had become something much larger, a movement toward better cross-species understanding, a recognition that emotional honesty could be a strength, not a weakness. Later that evening, Jiho and Lyra sat in a quiet corner of the station's dining area. They were reviewing notes for the upcoming Galactic Council presentation, but the work was light and comfortable. Can I ask you something personal? Lyra said suddenly. Always, Jiho replied. Do you still feel attracted to me? Jiho considered lying to spare her any discomfort, but that would contradict everything they had built together. Yes, he said honestly, but it's different now. Less overwhelming, more manageable, like background music instead of a loud alarm. Lyra's bioluminescence shifted to thoughtful yellow. Does it bother you that I can't return those feelings? Sometimes, Jiho admitted, but not in the way you might think. It's not painful anymore. It's just there, part of the complexity of being human. I've learned to accept it. I wish I could return it, Lyra said quietly. Not because I feel I should, but because you're a good person and I value you. If I were capable of human-style attraction, you would be someone worthy of it. That's the kindest thing anyone has ever said to me, Jiho said, genuinely moved. It's the truth, Lyra replied. Her glow warmed to orange. You took something that could have been destructive and turned it into something productive. You were honest when you could have hidden. You were ethical when you could have been selfish. Those are rare qualities. You helped me do that, Jiho said. By listening instead of judging, by trying to understand instead of rejecting. We helped each other, Lyra said. That's what good partnerships do. They finished their meal and returned to work, but Jiho felt something settle in his chest. Peace, maybe, or acceptance. He had spent so much time fighting against his attraction, trying to make it disappear or at least diminish. But now he understood that he didn't need to fight it. He just needed to acknowledge it, manage it, and continue living his life with honesty and purpose. The next week, Jiho received a message from Hana. She wanted to meet in her office. When he arrived, she was smiling broadly. I wanted to tell you in person, she said. The Station Council has decided to implement your workshop as mandatory training for all new arrivals, human and non-human alike. They believe it will significantly improve cross-species working relationships. That's wonderful, Jiho said. It's more than wonderful, Hana replied. It's revolutionary. You and Lyra have changed how this station operates. Other stations are already implementing similar programs. Within a year, this could be standard practice throughout the entire diplomatic network. Jiho felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had accomplished. I just wanted to work better with Lyra. I never intended to change galactic policy. The best changes often start small, Hana said. One honest conversation, one difficult truth, and then it spreads because others recognize its value. That evening, Jiho and Lyra stood once again in the observation deck, their favorite spot, where so many important moments had happened. "Are you glad I confronted you that day?" Lyra asked. Jiho thought about it. The fear he had felt, the difficulty of the conversation, the vulnerability of admitting the truth, and then everything that had come after, the understanding, the friendship, the positive changes that rippled outward from that one moment. "Yes," he said firmly. "I'm glad. Avoiding you was exhausting. It took constant energy and caused constant stress. Honesty was harder in the moment, but easier in the long run." "Very human," Lyra said, her glow brightening with approval. "And very admirable." They watched the stars together in comfortable silence. Not as romantic partners, because that was impossible between them. Not just as colleagues, because they had moved beyond simple professional relationship. As friends, perhaps. Or something uniquely their own, built on honesty and mutual respect and the understanding that differences don't have to divide. They can connect. Jiho no longer regretted the attraction he felt. It had led to discomfort, yes, but it had also led to growth, to honesty, to a friendship he valued more than any romance could have provided. The attraction might never fully disappear, but that was okay. It was part of being human, part of feeling intensely and managing those feelings ethically. It was part of what made humans special in the galaxy, their ability to experience powerful emotions while still choosing rational behavior. "Thank you," Jiho said quietly. "For what?" Lyra asked. "For asking why I was avoiding you, for not accepting my excuses, for forcing me to be honest when I was too afraid to be." Lyra's bioluminescence glowed warm and bright, the visual equivalent of a smile. "You're welcome. And thank you for answering honestly, even though it was terrifying." "It left you completely silent," Jiho recalled. "It did," Lyra agreed, "but that silence led to understanding. And understanding led to everything we've built since then." They remained in the observation deck until late into the station's night cycle, two beings from different worlds who had found common ground in honesty. The universe spread out before them, vast and full of possibilities, and they faced it together with clear eyes and open hearts. The story of how one human diplomat managed his feelings and one Velian liaison learned to understand them would continue to spread throughout the galaxy. It would change policies, improve relationships, and help countless beings work together more effectively. But for Jiho and Lyra, standing in their observation deck watching the stars, the impact was simpler and more personal. They had found something rare in the vast galaxy, genuine friendship built on radical honesty. And that was worth more than any diplomatic achievement or galactic recognition. That was worth everything.